Question of the day: what is your favorite major game-changing expansion to a game? So we'll be talking about things that kind of take the original sauce of a game and then mix it up and make it something different. Like, for instance, the Power Grid, the stock market expansion. Essentially what happens is in that you're playing Power Grid, but you're one step removed where you're bidding on stock companies to play Power Grid like you would an 18xx game. Love that. Because today we're talking about Viticulture World. Now, Viticulture is a competitive worker placement game that is tremendous. It's one of my top 100 games of all time. You can see my list of those here on the Dice Tower I did a few years ago. Some things have changed since then, but Viticulture is an amazing game. So naturally, when I heard about the fact that Viticulture World was a cooperative expansion for Viticulture, I thought, I love co-op. I love Viticulture. This can probably work. Then we played the game. We're going to talk final thoughts. As we do, we'll do an overview. It's hard because it is Viticulture. So if you've seen Viticulture, it's one of the earliest reviews I ever did. It was silly back when I was doing a lot of gimmicks, and I still love doing that. But Viticulture is one of my favorite games of all time. So we're going to come back up, talk final thoughts of the overview. It's just of the new stuff. So if you want to learn how to play Viticulture, there are plenty of resources for that. But this is going to be talking about how to play and what is the new expansion of Viticulture World. All right, so this is Viticulture World. We are currently using the South America rules setup. Now you'll notice up here at the top we have these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different personalities that you're going to be able to take advantage of during the game with South America. Now essentially there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's quite a few scenarios over here dating from Europe to North America to Asia to Charterstone. Yes, that's right, Green Gully. They all have different rules. Some of them involve like this sort of rewards track here that you put on the board, and you'll get rewards as you move across it. Others are going to have things like this where you have personalities to use. Others are going to have things like this where you cover up things on the board and change the year end, change the points value here, change all sorts of stuff on the game. You'll lay these out on the board where they belong, and it kind of covers up and becomes the new section. So you'll do things like that essentially. That's what this is. So all of these different countries are essentially different rules for the game. One other new addition here is these innovation tiles. These are going to spruce up certain actions on the board. Now some of them will go on the actual the action of what it does. For instance, K would go on K here. So it's harvest one field currently. This is harvest all your fields. That's what that would change to. Or if it's one of the round ones, it changes the actual action space. So when you do that, you'll get a bonus on the action. So for instance, if we were to put this here, you would also gain an extra $1 for going there. Plus it opens up who can go there. One of the big major additions you'll notice are these hats. Now, while they're stylish and cool, they're actually a downgrade of your worker. What this means is this is a summer worker, which means it can only be placed in summer. This is a winter worker, it can only be placed in winter. There are new actions now for training workers where you pop the hat off and now they can be used in any season. Additionally, these spaces are basically the amount of players you have determines how many spaces are available, plus the Grande worker still gets to use most of its benefits, albeit there are subtle differences. Now, in our version this time in South America, I'm going to show you. Now, this isn't a spoiler thing. None of this is hidden information. You can literally look at it all you want. But for instance, our first scenario says, so in the way this works is in spring, you'll reveal a new event card. So for the first one here, it says, on their turn, and it gives a little flavor text, players may pay $2 I don't remember what the word is. Anyway, pay 2 money to take the Father Cedron from the personality deck and use his power for the rest of the game. If that player has at least that, ties do not count, that player also gains a victory point. So what you're doing is a little different. Yes, you're gaining victory points, but most importantly, you have to have a certain amount of victory points, and you also have to have a certain amount of influence points down here by the end of the game. Because it is cooperative, you're using these things that you would do in a normal Viticulture game, plus this one down here, pay $8 to gain influence, plus there are ways to gain influence based on these characters. For instance, Francisco Pizarro, you pay $3 less when you gain influence via action P. That's this one. Some of the other cards will give you that. Now some of them are going to change how you gain influence based on this. Now these Europe has secret goals, so you're going to gain influence based on your secret goals as well. Essentially the actions are pretty much the same. You're going to gain, you're going to give tours, you're going to plant, you're going to grow, you're going to harvest, you're going to sell orders, all of the normal stuff you do in Viticulture, plus all the little extra stuff that you'd be doing One other difference is here you're going to choose a bonus for the spring and then a bonus for the winter. It does feel like there's mixes of the feel of Tuscany in here as well as the basics, but you've got 6 rounds to get this done. Now that is a tight 6 rounds to do that. It's very hard to do that sometimes, but again, all the bonuses that each map gives you plus all of the trinkets that each map gives you. I say trinkets, but what I mean is all the additional things that the map gives you the ability to do it, but it is meant to be challenging. It is meant to be hard. So those are all the different areas that you can play. It does have the 2-sided board, so if you want to play it with the buildings cards or structures card, you can, otherwise you don't have to. But the meat of the new stuff comes from the events and the fact that you kind of have to puzzle this out, and each one is going to give you different things to do. But that is how you play Viticulture World. It's different, but it's not so different after all. So let's talk final thoughts right now. So that's Viticulture World. Now, naturally, Viticulture is one of my favorite games, like I said. So how do I feel about Viticulture World? Now, it's different, that's for sure. Different doesn't mean better or worse necessarily. As Eric Bischoff says, with WCW, they had to be either better than, couldn't do that, less than, didn't want to do that, or different than. And that's really the key. Is Viticulture World different than enough to where it merits getting? And that's really what we're going to be dissecting. Yes, it is different. It does change the flavor of the game. Let's talk about high points first. Now, obviously, the game looks good. It's Viticulture. It always has. I love Viticulture. I love the way it plays. I love the mechanics of Viticulture. Now, what this introduces is more of a mechanic of playing against the game. You know, you're playing competitively, or cooperatively, excuse me, to compete against the game. So you have to get a certain amount of points influence by the round 6. And then when you do that, it's a win. But the game itself has a lot of interesting concept. I like the different scenarios. I wish there were more of them, in fact. Now, one thing is it does feel like there's a different artist at the wheel. Now, here's what I mean by that. When you watch the sequel trilogy of Star Wars, it definitely feels like there are different voices each time. When you play this, it definitely feels like there's a different voice behind it than Jamie Stegmaier, which there is. It's a different designer for Viticulture World. So keep that in mind, because there are going to be moments that do feel, that's not quite right. That doesn't feel quite right. Because the beauty of Viticulture is getting an efficient engine going to where by the end of it, you're racking up boom, 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 points, selling orders. It's such a great worker placement game. This kind of feels like it can be difficult first and foremost, but it changes it so much in a good way to keep things fresh, where you're not doing the same things over and over. But sometimes those differences can become a little daunting. So take that as you will. If you love the Viticulture sauce, the way it's presented, the way it's played normally, this may not be the best thing for you. However, if you love Viticulture, but you also just want something different, but you want to stay in the same feel, this is definitely a win for you. Now, one thing about the flavor text I thought was interesting is it walks the line of being a little bit preachy and a little bit educational without feeling like too much of both, because it gives kind of a historical narrative, you know, especially South America. Here's what happened in South America. Unsavory things happened in the history, but here's how it's kind of developed since. I think that's good. It walks that fine line without falling too far into either side, when it could easily have done that. You know, I like to play games to escape from all that sort of stuff. Twitter is a garbage heap of a not real place. If you think Twitter is real life, it is not real life. But I like to escape that sort of thing and play games. And this one does a good job of being like, hey, by the way, without being like, hey, by the way. I think it just walks that line. It's very close, but it walks the line and does a better job of it than things I've seen in the past. So the game itself looks good, obviously. It plays good. It's fun. Is it necessary? And that's the key. That's the key of why you're here. Will I play this more than I play regular competitive Viticulture? And that's the question that I would have to say. I would rather play competitive Viticulture than cooperative Viticulture because of the nature of the game. Does it mean that I don't like this? Absolutely not. I think this is a fine expansion. It's a great expansion, especially if you like co-op. Here's the thing. This is for the person or persons who don't like competitive games but love Euro-style games. This scratches the itch of, well, I don't really want to be too competitive and be like, I sold all that. No, I took that card out from under you, or I took that space from you. This really does that in a really nice way. Plus, the innovation tiles are really cool. So this scratches a perfect niche itch, whatever, for people who don't love competitive style games, but who don't want to play completely cooperative in the sense of, let's just, it is what it is, and it's good. It does a good job of balancing for those who love competitive and those who love cooperative. It balances well. If I'm going to go pick up one off the shelf, I'm still going to pick the original, but that's just me because I love the original so much. And it's so good on its own, and I rarely say that about expansions, but only because this one does change it so much. Is this a great competitive game? It really is. It does a good job. The goals and stuff like that are fun. What you do is fun. The changes each type of map makes this fun. I like the little tweaks. It's more modules than anything. At the end of the day, if you like viticulture, you're going to like this game. If you love viticulture and you love the competitive cutthroat nature of viticulture, economically, you may not want this one as much, but if you like cooperative Euro games, this is a win-win. So I'm Brian Drake here on the Dice Tower. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, etc. at Dice Tower Brian. Until next time, we'll see you.